We all have our own compositional process, and sometimes ideas are just flowing and cues come together super easy. But other times the creative well kind of seems to run dry. Sometimes you have all the time in the world to write, but other times deadlines are pressing in on all sides and you just have to get moving. So how do we go about balancing creativity and output, and what part does process play in? Well, today, I want to talk about compositional sketching, and I thought it would be a really good idea to show you my own compositional sketchbook and talk about how I use it to help capture ideas and also buoy my creativity when maybe I'm feeling a little empty or even under a time crunch. Plus, we're going to take a listen to a brassy funk cue written by a member of the 52 Cues community on this week's episode of the 52 Cues podcast. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Cues podcast, a weekly podcast dedicated to all things production and library music, where we talk about industry topics and take deep dives into the different aspects of being a working production music composer. Plus, we feature a cue written by you, a member of the 52 Cues community, and this week we're going to take a listen to Horn-Toed Funk, which is a brassy funk cue written by Raede, so you definitely want to stick around for that. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad you found me, however you found me. I know you have a ton of options out there, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening via audio podcast. I just want to thank you for spending part of your day here with me. I also want to give a special word of thanks to the family, friends, and patrons of 52 Cues who help keep the podcast, the channel, and everything here going. We are 100% community supported, so if you like what I do here, don't thank me, thank them. But if you want to learn more about how you can help support 52 Cues and also unlock extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, and a ton more, then be sure to click on the links in the description or stick around, because we're going to be talking more about that a little bit later in today's episode. So as I said in the intro, I know we all have our own compositional process, and today I want to talk about one of the things that I do quite frequently called compositional sketching. And the concept is that you set aside time during your session, whether it's an hour or half an hour or whatever, and you do nothing but brainstorm ideas. I call it sketching. And then you extract those ideas a little bit later. And then I want to show you how I've set up my logic session to facilitate this concept. But let's back up before we look at the logic session. I want to talk about this idea of sketching, because there are times where I feel more kind of creatively charged, right? I feel like the juices are really, really flowing, and I want to make sure that I kind of get as much mileage out of that as possible. But there are other times when I'm not feeling super creative, and so having a centralized repository of ideas that I can go back to, many ideas I've long since forgotten since I wrote them, can be a really fantastic way to just mine your own past self for current projects. And so I call it a sketchbook. It's just a logic session. And I've been better about this, if just full honesty. I've been better about this in the past. It seems like the busier I get, the lower on the priority scale that this becomes, or the priority ladder. But I need to remind myself that not only does this feel super rewarding by sketching ideas, but it helps me much later in my compositional process. So the idea is really simple. During a session, set aside a dedicated amount of time. Could be half an hour. It could be an hour. I generally like to go for about an hour and set a timer. Just set a timer. And for this hour, I am doing nothing but brainstorming ideas. Specifically, little melodic hooks, little melodic ideas. And no idea is bad. And I don't quantize anything. I don't turn on a click. I just put my hands on an instrument and just brainstorm. Just brainstorm. I do put my hands on an instrument, and I would encourage you to do that. Regardless of your piano skills, or if you're a guitarist, regardless of your guitar skills, just put your hands on an instrument. I think it makes a really big difference because you can just easily just kind of key some ideas together, and then you create another alternative or another track and just start again. Most ideas are anywhere between, 10 to 15 seconds. Sometimes they'll be upwards of 30 seconds, but they're just little fragments, little melodic ideas. They're sketches. Imagine, a painter sketching out. You're just getting a rough idea. You're not necessarily like focusing on the details. The idea is you're just getting broad strokes that you can then extract later into a full cue. And then just play. Just play. Don't overthink it. Don't edit it necessarily. Don't put on a click. Don't quantize it. Don't get into the mix. Don't even get into like tweaking the sounds or anything. And I'll talk about how I set this up in my session. But just put your hands on an instrument and start playing and capture each idea. Now, that having been said, try not to sketch without purpose. Don't just sit down and say, I'm just going to sketch and just sketch. Instead, think, this is a vibe I'm going for, or this is an emotion that I'm going for. Or if you have a brief, whether it's a taxi listing or whether it's a library request, start with that. This concept and this habit really came to me a few years ago when I got a big contract for a library and they wanted like 90 cues in 1 year. And I had to be really diligent about creating a lot of ideas in a relatively short amount of time. And they wanted like an album of 15 dramedy cues. And then they ended up wanting another 15. And then later they wanted another 15 dramedy cues. And so doing this sketchbook idea, this sketching concept, really, really helped fire all of those cues out in time and hitting the deadline. That's where the concept kind of came to me and the workflow that I'll show you later in Logic. But when I sat down to write, I knew, okay, I need, at the time I didn't know I needed 45, but eventually I did need 45 cues. So I would sit down, all right, this is a dramedy cue, this is what I'm going for, and I would pull up either a piano or I would pull up a pizzicato string patch in Logic and then just play some ideas. Improvise some ideas. Getting things, trying, experimenting, changing keys, not changing keys, because I could always, I would play in keys that I feel comfortable in, and then if I wanted to change the keys, I can do that in the MIDI later, no problem. But I knew that I was setting out to write X number of dramedy cues. And so pointing my creativity at a direction as opposed to, I'm just sketching. It doesn't matter. So whether it's a brief, whether it's a certain type of cue you're writing, whether it's a vibe that you're going for, it might be a sketch that is just exploring a sound. Like here is a sound I like. And I'll talk about that a little bit later because I have some ideas about where I can take my sketchbook after this. Because the sketchbook that I have, that I've been using, is primarily a melodic sketchbook, but I think there might be ways to extend that sketchbook into like a palette of colors. But I'll talk about that here in a minute. But at the end of the day, it's about setting aside time in your writing block, however long your writing block is. And I wouldn't, if you only have 2 hours to do anything that day, I probably wouldn't spend an hour of it sketching, but maybe a half an hour, maybe 25% of the sketch. And the sketching might be for the cue you're about to work on, or it could just be, I'm just going to sketch. I'm going to sketch X number for 30 minutes. I'm going to hit a timer, and however many ideas I can crank out. No idea is a bad one. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm not editing, I'm not quantizing. Just going to hit record and start playing. And then when an idea coalesces, then create a new track and move on. That is my sketching process. Then when it comes time to sit down and write the cues, I flip through the sketchbook, audition sounds, audition ideas, and I think, hey, this one works. This one's cool. What can I do with this one? And then I will copy that MIDI, or I will actually relearn it, especially if it's been a while, and play it into a new session. But set aside time specifically dedicated to just sketching. And I know I need to make this a more consistent part. So I think I'm saying that for 2023, not that I'm all up into resolutions and everything, but I think I need to do that. I need to better myself about this, because I see the fruits of that and the benefits of it. And pulling up sketches from things that I wrote 1 or 2 years ago, and they sound really, really good, and they really work. And I can't wait to make new cues out of them. It's almost like going back in time. So how I do it. Let's take a look at my Logic session, and there is nothing fancy at all about this Logic session. And you can see I first have a section that are just instruments, specifically instruments that I find I use across multiple cues. And the first is a piano, and this is just a grandeur patch. Just a grandeur patch, nothing fancy at all, no real effects or anything. That's not the point of this. And I do a lot of my sketching on the piano because I feel that any good melody should at least somewhat be communicable, if that's the right word. You should be able to communicate any solid melody with a piano. Some exceptions to this might be like some ominous tension-y kind of things where delays and sound design kind of play in. But in my opinion, any real solid melody should, on some level, be able to be communicated via piano. So I have a good piano sound that I like. I do have some staccato strings. So in case I'm doing sketches for epic hip hop or tension cues, I can just easily get to those. And these are Project Sam from Symphobia 1. And this shows you how old the sketchbook is, because it's still on version 1.6 of Symphobia. And I'm much beyond that now. I think they're on version 2 or maybe even 2.1 by now. I do have some pizzicato strings, which is another Symphobia patch. And then I have actually stock Logic marimba, because I just find it just works, especially getting like really low. Just sounds so good. So these are the color choices that I have set aside. And when I set out to write a specific type of cue, I will pick the sound that I want to use, and I will just put my hands on a keyboard and start experimenting with not recording anything yet, but I will just start playing around with some ideas. Things start coalescing, improvising, putting my hands on the instrument, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. And once something starts effervescing and starts coalescing, well, that's a better word, then I will choose what mood, emotion, or project or type of cue is going to, that I'm really going for. So whether it's an uplifting cue or an intrigue with hope cue, a light tension, I have marimba intrigue because that was another album actually. Epic hip hop, dramatic tension, dramedy staccato, and dramedy pizzicato. You'll notice the color coding corresponds to the instrument that I'm using. And these colors are completely arbitrary. So, light blue for piano, orange is staccato strings, yellow is marimba, and red is pizzicato. Again, these are completely arbitrary, but it just helps me kind of keep things organized as I am looking at them. And so each track represents a specific emotion, mood, project, or whatever. And I use Logic's track alternative feature to catalog the different sketches, the different little melodic nuggets. And I'm not sure if like Cubase or anything has this type of feature. I think it's really handy. And if you're a Logic user, you can turn on track alternatives. You're going to want to right click the track, go to track header components, and then turn on track alternatives. And what this enables me to do is, like, here is one called Problem Solvers. Right, so I will work that out maybe on the instrument, and then I will go and record it into the lane, into the track that it needs to, that corresponds to the project. No quantization, no click. It's not perfect. It's not mixed. It's not edited, right? It's just to get ideas out. And so once that one's in the can, then I might go create a new one and write another one. And this will be the sketch. Now, this is just my mental categorization. Once something has a title, that means that it's been put into a queue and developed into a full queue. If it doesn't have a title, then that means it is available. And so let's see what we got here. Yeah, it's really raw. It's not quantized. It's somewhat stream of consciousness. All right, let's see. Do I have any light tensions that haven't been played? Here's a light tension cue. All right, so that's cool. Here's a marimba intrigue cue called Last Piece of the Puzzle. This interesting thing about this one is I just played it without really any internal, like I just felt it, right? So I didn't really have like a click going on and a meter or anything. And when it came time to extract it into its own cue, interestingly enough, it turned out to be in an odd meter. Check it out. It's actually in 9/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, the big challenge of this was making that feel normal, because here it felt totally normal. Yeah. But when it came time to actually put it in the queue, everything had to be, obviously quantized, and I had to kind of sort all of that out. Now, the process of getting from here, this cue, to there, it's a little bit beyond the scope of what we're doing here, and it's a little bit like the meme. If you've seen the meme, Just Draw the Owl. Have you seen that meme before? The idea is how it's so easy to learn to draw. Step 1, draw some circles. Step 2, draw the rest. And it's something like this. Like step 1, just There are some circles. Step 2, draw the rest of the effing owl. And so it's not really what we're doing here. Again, it's a little bit beyond the scope of this podcast, but it is what I do during my live streams. It's why I do the live streams, because I think it's super important to see the compositional process in action. And I actually have a gift. I have a gift for you. If you're interested in the live streaming thing, there is a link in the description below that you can click on that is to a previous live stream of a dramedy cue. It doesn't use anything from the sketchbook, but you can see that process in action. So click on the link in the description, or maybe I'll have a floating link up here somewhere, and you can check out. It's a 2-hour live stream writing a dramedy cue, and you can see it from beginning to end, and you can check that out. Because I do live streams every single week, and this isn't a commercial for live streams, but I do live streams every single week, and they are a feature of the family, friends, and patrons of 52Q. So that's what that's about. And like I said, yeah, just draw the rest of the owl, but there's more to it. There are some in-between steps. Today, I just want to focus on that sketching idea. Now, the first cue that we checked out, which was problem solvers. All right, so that is, well, there's my owl. Again, don't need that. But here is problem solvers extracted. This is all craft. You know, it's taking the melody, it's adding chord changes underneath, it's adding intensity through doubling, adding new layers. Like there's a harmonic change while the melody cooks on. So that's Don't Go In There. Let's see here, or I'm sorry, that's a problem solver. Here's another one. This one's called Don't Go In There and is a staccato dramedy cue. So instead of pizzicato, it uses staccato. And that got turned into this cue. Just octave layering into the melody. Here is a pizzicato cue. This is a tiptoe through the trap beats. And let me, actually, I don't have that one pulled up, but let me, I can pull this up here. Nope. There it is. And so that sounds like this. Slowed it down a little bit, but the nugget is there. The core, the hook is there. Just octave layering here. Here's one of my favorite ones. This one's called Funky Chonkers. Chonkers is another word for an overweight cat. Chonkers. All right, so that was the entirety of the sketch. And then that got turned into this. A funky ukulele in there. And then because it's a dramedy cue, you can get away with like key changes and stuff like that. That works. And then one final one here is It All Comes Down to This, which is an epic hip hop cue. Right, that little fat finger moment right there. And then that got turned into this. This one isn't even an epic orchestral hip hop. It's a high energy EDM type of a hip hop cue, but it started with that hook, that melody. And this was written when I sat down to write a bunch of little hooks. You just sit down, create a space for it. 30 minutes, an hour, and just crank out the ideas. They're not all going to be winners. They're not. And some of them won't ever find their way to a cue. I have some uplifting cues here, which, I mean, I can see this being like a EDM cue. I could totally hear that. Let's see. We got another one here. Right, that's cool. All right, let's see. Let's listen to, do I have any other epic hip hop ones that haven't found a home yet? Yeah, it sounds like a diamond commercial or something. Woo, that's a rough sketch. Yeah, the point is to have a single place organized however it makes sense to you, but to have one single place that you can keep dipping back into to input ideas, and then you can extract ideas when you need. And that's ultimately what this is about. And I use Logic to do this, and I create the track alternatives to categorize or to kind of catalog rather all of the different ideas using the tracks for the different types of cues based off the instrumentation that I have. And that's the method that I use. Now, in thinking through all of this, I think I could probably take my sketchbook idea a little bit further. Because I mentioned like tension cues and things like that earlier, but I wonder if I could have using a project alternative with Logic, using a project alternative instead of a track alternative, save a project alternative. Or if you're not on Logic, you can create another file or whatever. That are, maybe it's just, here are a bunch of interesting, ominous drones. And so spend an hour, instead of coming up with a bunch of little melodic ideas, spend an hour dipping into Omnisphere or through your massive collection or Serum or whatever. And here are a bunch of cool atmospheric drones. And so cataloging the finds that you can find auditioning patches. Because I don't know about you, but that just completely takes so much time and derails my creativity, and you just get kind of ear blind to it. And you're like, I don't know if this is good anymore. I don't know. But having a project alternative with nothing but pre-approved cool drone sounds that are already loaded up, already dialed in, ready to use, that could be super helpful. And then in Logic, you could import them. So you can, let's say you're creating a new tension cue. You've created a new tension cue, and then in Logic, you can import individual tracks and individual sounds, so you don't have to keep diving back in. But the point is you can go open up the session and just start immediately playing and having access to all of those sounds to start generating ideas. Because I guess the way that I have my sketchbook right now, these would be my melodic sketches, and I would create a track alternative or a session alternative, and I would call that melodic sketches. But I could just as easily have a sketchbook of 808s or drone tension cues or pulsing ticks or percussion or whatever, so that I can immediately start the composition process. So I can immediately have access to ideas that I've already come up with before. And that's what this is all about. That saves time. That buoys creativity. But it starts with having a little bit of organization and setting aside time in your compositional day to create ideas. And not necessarily have to wait until the inspiration strikes. It's probably not the best idea. Instead, do it anyway. Like exercise, like brushing your teeth. Do it because it's going to make you a healthier person. It's going to make you a healthier creative individually by exercising that muscle, that creative muscle. Again, they're not all going to be winners. My sketchbook is full of untitled lettered track alternatives. But it's the process of doing the sketching that ideas start to formulate. And the more you do that, then the more obvious and the easier the steps are between the circles and the full drawing and the full owl. But what about you? Do you have a sketching process that really works? Is it part of your daily or even weekly routine? Do you keep different DAW sessions set up with all your ideas, or do you actually do handwritten pen and paper? I would love to hear from you. Please let me know in the comments below. I do read all of those and make an effort to respond. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be taking a listen to Horn-Toed Funk, written by Raede, and so you definitely want to stick around for that. It is a brassy funk cue with some like Tower of Power, kind of old school Chicago vibes to it. But first, we're going to take a listen to some words from Mrs. 52 Q's, Shannon Croft, who's going to tell us all about how you can join us at 52 Q's community.
Hey y'all, I'm Shannon Croft, and I want to tell you that the 52 Q's podcast is made possible by viewers and listeners just like you, composers and producers who are looking for a better way to connect and collaborate. You see, 52 Q's isn't just another website selling static, pre-recorded videos to a mass audience. It's a fun, vibrant, and positive community that comes together online for sharing cues, getting feedback, and discussing what's up in the production music industry. You'll find both personalized feedback and live interaction, which are the best and fastest ways to grow your skills and earn more placements. The best part is that the 52 Q's community is absolutely free. And when you're ready to take your career to the next level, we offer friends and family subscriptions, which unlock weekly live streams, live interactive group feedback sessions, monthly interactive workshops, and more. Head over to 52qs.com and sign up today. And while you're there, check out our personalized feedback videos, private lessons, and of course, merch. I can't wait to see you at 52qs.com.
right, that was Horn Toad Funk revised. So thank you very much. I had the privilege of checking this out ahead of time. Rob had ordered up a feedback video, and so I was so happy to give him the feedback, and I love getting the follow-up, and so I wanted to feature this here on the podcast. First of all, stellar brass programming. Really solid brass programming, and some of the best that I've heard, and it's just really, really good, and really good drum programming as well. I enjoyed this all the way around. Yeah, I'm not quite so sure. We might have overpanned a little bit. That guy coming in way off to the right. The guitar. Yeah, we have kind of one guitar over here and another guitar over there. I think I would kind of bring them back a little bit more towards the center. I like the idea of spreading them around. I think that's okay. But I feel like they're a little exaggerated right now. So I would bring them up a little bit. The drums have a Spin Doctors vibe to them. That kind of that late 90s, early 2000s chili peppery type of like aluminum snare pop to them. Yeah, this definitely gives me some Spin Doctor vibes. The 1, 2, two princes or whatever the name of that song. Princes, they'll be for you. That's what I said now, right? Again, the horns. Yeah, and you've done a fantastic job with your horn programming, finding all of the different articulations where, you know, it's not just like one patch and you're just kind of mushing it all together, but the staccatos versus the crescendos and everything. Now that Barry sax. Yeah, nice. Nice. Yep. And this is a super nitpicky thing. Super nitpicky. And this is me, Dave the drummer, coming through. The hi-hat here, you're doing an open, closed hi-hat, and it feels like we're still keeping the 16th notes cooking. I would just lay into do eighth notes on the hi-hat, and in your drum sounds, look for an open hi-hat that's being pushed in with the shoulder of the stick and not the tip of the stick. Again, I said it was super nitpicky. But it sounds like the open hi-hat is from the tip. And again, I'm not sure if your library has this, but you want that sloshy half open shoulder of the stick, so it's more. It's almost like a reverse kind of sound. Yeah, that's some David Garibaldi stuff going on in the drums. Yep. I'm not sure about that ending though. And I think I would lay off the groove here and have, you know, everybody play bow, and maybe more of a fall off. But it does seem to sneak up on us. Bow. I I think it just needs a little bit more of a solid ending. Well, Rob, thank you so much for sending this along. Super enjoyed it. Thanks for sending along for a feedback video. And as I mentioned, this was sent along during our week 51 feedback thread. And Rob, thank you. Thank you so much. We put weekly feedback threads up every single week, and we're just now wrapping up week 52. And be sure to tune in next week because I'm going to be covering a new cue from week 52. But if that's something that you enjoyed, that you found helpful, then why don't you join us over at 52cues.com. You can submit your own cue for a consideration on the podcast. I do and will continue to feature a community cue every single week. But if you found that feedback helpful and you would like more direct feedback on your own cues, then you can check out 52cues.com/coaching. And you can order a feedback video where I will give in-depth analysis of your cue, everything from the mix to the EQ, the mastering, even the title, the harmonic considerations, melodic considerations, form, structure, all of those things. Head over to 52cues.com/coaching and order one today. And while you're there, you can also check out our one-on-one sessions and our quarterly mastermind, which is set to take off just next week. It's getting ready to crank up our winter 2023 mastermind. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed that. And I'd love to hear about your sketch process. You definitely want to tune in next week because I am doing the year in review, the wins, the losses, how my 2022 went, because it is week 52 of the 52 cues. I'll give a rundown on how many cues I wrote and just my general thoughts, and moving forward, what's next for 2023. And I have really, really good plans that I can't wait to talk about. Be sure to tune into that next week. But that's going to do it. Once again, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and patrons of 52 Cues who help keep everything going. You can find out more at 52cues.com. But that's going to do it. And I hope that you had a fantastic week 51. And I know that your week 52 is going great. How do I know that? Because I know that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2022 Dave Croft, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the 52 Cues community and submitting your cue for consideration on the podcast, head over to 52cues.com.